A new form of diaspora in You for You, by Mia Chung. Hunger, border, and sacrifice transcending time and space. The crossing is the fight of your life in which time and space are ground into pebbles so tiny they can slip through the cracks of an enormous fist. Hello everyone. I'm gonna present about You for You, by Mia Chung today. The title of my presentation is A New Form of Diaspora in You for You, by Mia Chung, Hunger, Border, and Sacrifice Transcending Time and Space. This quote is how Chung describes the crossing through the play. The crossing is the fight of your life in which time and space are ground into pebbles so tiny they can slip through the cracks of an enormous fist. This is how Mia Chung looks like, and she is a contemporary Korean-American playwright recognized for her innovative storytelling and the exploration of complex themes in her works. She was born in New York to parents who immigrated separately before meeting and marrying. Her father was a nuclear engineer, while her mother worked in business. Me for Me is a play Chung developed during her MFA program at Brown University, beginning in 2010 and completed in 2012. The work premiered in its current form at Washington, D.C.'s Woolly Mammoth Theatre in the fall of 2012 and made its UK debut at London's Royal Court on December 3, 2015. As second-generation Korean-American playwrights, Mia Chung and her contemporaries, like Julia Cho and Sung Rno, are notably influenced by key figures of the 20th century American literary canon, such as Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and Sam Shepard. At the same time, it should be noted that many Asian Pacific American dramatists have embarked on different aesthetic paths, struggling to break free of the confines of the realist truth-telling model of theater. Through the integration of American stylistic elements and the adoption of postmodern and surreal stage techniques, these playwrights effectively articulate the complexities of race and the diaspora. And Chung chose to apply a narrative technique that interweaves real events with elements of fantasy called magical realism in Me for Me, which I will explain further later, to pursue its unique aesthetic path and emphasize the diasporic feature of the play. Prior to engaging in a comprehensive analysis, a brief overview of the history of Korean immigration will be provided. Historically, Korean society has been rooted in agriculture, with its people establishing settled communities rather than adopting a nomadic lifestyle. However, with the advent of modern history, patterns of Korean diaspora emerged. For example, Koreans migrated to regions such as Jiandao to resist Japanese imperialism, while others were forcibly relocated to Central Asia under Soviet policies, having previously resided on coastal islands. Korean migration to the United States commenced with the arrival of the first generation of immigrants on Hawaiian sugarcane plantations, driven primarily by survival needs. Subsequent waves of Korean immigration to the United States were characterized by different motivations, including the adoption of war orphans and the arrival of international students and white-collar professionals, symbolizing a second generation of immigrants motivated by aspirations for the American dream. However, sisters Min-hee and Jun-hee in the play have completely different reasons for migration from the first and second generations of immigrants. Their diaspora arises from extreme conditions, including severe hunger and the urgent need to escape a society that denies basic human dignity. About the North Korean diaspora, Chung has stated that the inspiration for the play stemmed from the 2009 incident involving U.S. journalists Laura Ling and Yoona Lee, who were detained after inadvertently crossing the North Korean border, and their subsequent rescue by former President Bill Clinton. Another significant influence on her work is the story of a North Korean defector, featured in a BBC documentary, in which one individual first defected and earned money to bring her younger sister to South Korea. However, the sister ultimately refused this opportunity and expressed a desire to return to North Korea. The story of sisters who fell apart due to an inevitable incident and goes to save another is consistent with the content of this play. As a Korean-American playwright, it would have been almost impossible to write a work dealing with North Korea's life with little information about North Korea. And Chung also said in an interview, "I didn't want to get the verisimilitude of life in North Korea, I wanted to get into their imagination, their psychology." Chung's parents always had a hardline dismissal of the regime, expecting the system to collapse any moment. But soon Chung's own question became, will this system ever fall apart? Because the control is so tight, and the loyalty is very strong. Is it loyalty or fear? In some ways, it's both. In another interview, Chung also mentioned, to show the juxtaposition of an isolated society in North Korea and an open society outside, I had to create a situation that was virtually impossible. North Korean defectors settle in New York City and quickly learn English. Another inspiration was the North Korean regime. The propaganda that the North Korean authorities create and deliver to their people is almost magical. Therefore, I thought magical realism was a very appropriate way of narrating in this play. Magical realism in literature is a narrative style that incorporates fantastical elements into a realistic setting, presenting extraordinary or magical occurrences as part of ordinary life without explanation. Unlike pure fantasy, where the supernatural is central, magical realism blends reality and the surreal in a way that normalizes the magical aspects within a realistic framework. Based on what she said, this play describes the North Korean defector's life in North Korea, the process of defection, and the settlement process in the United States as magical realism against the backdrop of a dreamy stage. And it is noteworthy that magical realism frequently appears in oppressive and authoritarian dictatorships, and may be the result of a purification of politically very dangerous expression. This is closely related to the diaspora experienced by Min-hee and Jun-hee. Olivia Pope once brought up a question about the relation between the well and Min-hee's thoughts towards North Korea. Was she actually confined and sentenced to life in a jail cell or, as suggested in the play, the depths of a bottomless well? Was the well metaphorical or simply a manifestation of Min-hee's state of mind? And the line of the well seems to reflect Min-hee's inner conflict and guilt. Well. Worthless trash. Rotten to the core. Your base character and criminal/acts have disgraced your noble country. Be grateful your parents died before enduring this shame. Min-hee, who fell into the well in scene 8, creates several scenes that show the situation in North Korea, and it is not clear whether this is actually her experience or what she imagines in the well. And in scene 9, Min-hee faces unusual and surreal scenes such as the rice musician, the tuberous begonia known as Kim Jong-gilia, bear with accordion, and man in a bear suit. In contrast to Min-hee, Jun-hee, a nurse living in the United States, shows a portrayal more grounded in the realistic experiences of North Korean defectors. However, Jun-hee's experience is not depicted as entirely realistic, albeit to a lesser extent than Min-hee's. The cultural dislocation felt by North Korean defectors who directly transition to the U.S. is emphasized through Jun-hee's interactions. All individuals she encounters are referred to as Liz, and the English spoken by Liz is rendered at an exaggerated, incomprehensible pace, 3 times faster than normal, underscoring the language barrier and cultural alienation. Going to the United States from a closed North Korean society is almost impossible as going to outer space. Jun-hee's actions and shocks are described in verbal expressions. Lines written in gibberish, which are completely incomprehensible, are so difficult that there is a translation in parentheses, but as Jun-hee gradually adjusts to American life, it gradually changes into an understandable language. However, in scene 15, Liz in the hospital administration office pretends to give Jun-hee preferential treatment, rather allocates her to the ICU, and glosses over Jun-hee's question of whether she can become a full-time employee if she goes to the ICU. Liz. Great. Need more Jun-hee. Never complain, always help hard, work easy on time, focus calm, just work, just work. Like me. The juxtaposition of North Korea and New York serves to highlight the deprivation and psychological conditioning of North Korean society, the shallowness and rapaciousness of American consumerism. As such, the contrast between the two spaces of North Korea and New York shows that there is clear temporal nonlinearity between Min-hee and Jun-hee. It is best revealed in scene 20. Jun-hee, who is living in the future, and Min-hee, who continues to stay in the past, are always on their backs to each other throughout this scene. Jun-hee fills out a FedEx label and seals the envelope. Min-hee waits outside the schoolhouse. During this scene, they have their backs toward each other, always. Jun-hee. Here, every step counts. Every step is a little faster, more comfortable, more fun, more advanced. And then, so many accelerated footsteps later, you're in the future. Min-hee and Jun-hee exist in separate temporal spheres, metaphorically facing away from each other. This notion of temporal nonlinearity is further highlighted in the smuggler's lines. Smuggler. In our hermit country, time has virtually stopped. Life accelerates daily outside. In some places, the future is already the past. And they don't like the sick and the slow. Smuggler. You see, life moves much faster in America. Time has virtually stopped in our country, our beloved hermit kingdom. Go to New York City, there the future is already the past. This statement underscores the contrasting temporalities, with the hermit kingdom symbolizing stagnation while New York represents accelerated time, effectively collapsing traditional notions of past and future. A sacrifice. In scene 20, Min-hee and Jun-hee talk about familial love and sacrifice, some of the main themes that Chung tried to emphasize in the play. Min-hee. Remember how father used to tell us to strive always to be generous first? And living among others will be a joy and comfort. And we'll form one family. And each will sacrifice for the other. Jun-hee. Some people don't believe in sacrifice. Jun-hee exits. Min-hee. 3 times I've failed to give enough. My son. My husband. My sister. I did everything I could imagine. Min-hee and Jun-hee do not reunite until scene 27. In this pivotal scene, Jun-hee entrusts her wallet and US passport to a smuggler, requesting that he take her sister to Thailand. Shortly thereafter, she got shot by a soldier. Jun-hee's diasporic journey, which initially led her from North Korea to the United States, ultimately returns her to North Korea, while Min-hee, who remained in North Korea, now migrates to South Korea. Jun-hee. I lost track of time. Am I too late? Ani? Ani. This line indicates Jun-hee's sacrifice for her older sister is beyond the temporal sphere. And the juxtaposition of scene 6 and scene 29 highlights Jun-hee's efforts to save her sister at the border. In the distance, a military whistle. The smuggler muzzles Jun-hee and scans the area. A moment of tense listening. Then, a gunshot. Jun-hee runs into Min-hee's arms. The sound of soldiers in a synchronized goose-step march approaching. Min-hee. Look forward, not back. Jun-hee. I'm coming back for you. Min-hee. Goodbye. Min-hee. Can't we go together? Jun-hee. First you. Min-hee. I'd rather follow you. Jun-hee. You might stumble and fall again. Slip into the past. Get scared and run home. Min-hee. Not this time. I'm looking forward, not back. I've left home forever. Jun-hee watches Min-hee run. The rice bag melody moves through the trees and is carried by the wind and brightens the sunlight. Jun-hee pauses and listens for a moment. The sound of a gun being cocked. A gunshot. Jun-hee crumples to the ground. It is important to note that Jun-hee's sacrifice is articulated through the spatial boundary of the cross-border, while Min-hee's sacrifice is conveyed through the state of hunger. Food that alleviates hunger serves as an important object for fostering familial love and evoking nostalgia. In the first scene of the play, Min-hee gave up a bowl of rice porridge for Jun-hee. After Min-hee's sacrifice, Jun-hee comes to rescue her across the border. The medium that allows her to think of her sister and move quickly across space is a persimmon. Reflecting the reciprocal nature suggested by the title You for Me for You, Min-hee and Jun-hee illustrate a cyclical pattern of sacrifice, where each sister offers herself for the other. In this way, their diaspora transcends spatial and temporal boundaries.